Welcome to the Cullman Tribune's 2024 Candidate Debates. This is W.C. Mann, your moderator for this event, and we are talking to candidates for Cullman County Schools Superintendent. We have with us Superintendent Shane Barnette and Morris Williams, his challenger. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. Mr. Barnette, start us out.
Absolutely. I entered the education field 28 years ago. Education has been my mission field. I went into education to make a difference in young people's lives, and I feel like I've done that over the past 28 years. I'm married to my best friend. It's in education for 29 years. I have 3 boys that are graduates of Cullman County Schools. I've taught high school. I've been assistant principal. I've been a principal, and now I've been a superintendent for 8 years, and I'm running to really just be able to finish some things that I've started, and I believe in a few more years I could finish up some things, and I'm hoping to serve a few more years. And I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
I'm Morris Williams, and I've been in education for 27 years. I teach at Holly Pond High School. I've been teaching history, government, economics for 27 years pretty much. I also have chicken houses, and I've been doing that for 20 years. I adjunct teach at Wallace, U.S. History, and I am a firefighter and EMT with Jones Chapel Fire and Rescue Service. I went into education for basically the same reason, to try to make a difference for kids, and I too feel that I've done that. I've seen so many testimonials from former students, and it really makes a difference in my life when they say things like that. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have a list of 12 questions here. We will alternate. We will begin with Superintendent Barnette. So question number 1, how safe are our schools now, and how will you make them safer?
Well, I don't know if you could put a number on how safe our schools are. I think it's something that we're constantly trying to address, and it's a ever-changing goal to try to make our schools safe. We constantly are doing things to our schools to make them more safe. I think the biggest thing is getting kids connected to one another and to activities at school. So and getting them the help they need as far as mental health goes to make sure that they're not a threat to one another. But outside of that, we've done many things that we've made second entrances on all of our campuses where people that are visiting our schools can come in and get what they need from the office, but not access to down the hall from the schools. But we've also spent a lot of money on fencing and things like that. We're going to continue to do that. Right now, I'm negotiating to add additional film on our windows around all of our entryways and everything on our campuses. And we have a huge plan of what we can do to move forward as far as the safety goes. I won't say all of those things because some of them need to stay in-house. But we continue to do things to beef up our safety. We have SROs on all of our campuses through a partnership with the Sheriff's Office and with the County Commission. Just this year, we've added 3 more so that we have 2 SROs on each of our largest campuses. But really just having them there as a presence and then and doing additional training with all of our educators and all of our students so they know what to do if we do have an incident at school. And we take all of those incidents very seriously. And I think those are the things that we can do to keep our schools safe and really to move it forward. And we're always looking for new ideas. And I just set up an appointment this next week to talk to an individual about another program where we can have a quick notification for our offices and our SROs if a teacher needed to notify them immediately if we had an incident.
All right. Mr. Williams.
A lot of the problems with the safety, we have a lot of devices that will help with safety. And the fencing, I know that we're putting up some fence at Holly Pond High School. I don't know for sure how that will absolutely lead to some improved safety. It can. Stuff like simple things, doors being unlocked, where people could just walk onto campus. It shouldn't be happening, but it does happen, and that's human error. And you have to just reinforce that. All the programs with the cameras and safety devices are good ideas, and that's things that we need to follow up on and implement. It's just a matter of doing it. So, yeah, that's what we can do. I think that's a lot of it. You have to deal with human error, because I've seen some photos or videos where people were able to just walk into a class, into a school building because the doors unlocked in this county. So that's what I have to say.
Okay. Question number 2, and we'll go to Mr. Williams first. The Tribune publishes campaign finance records, was in our paper this morning, and so we'll give y'all a chance to speak about that. So on the topic of campaign finance, what do your donation and expenditure lists say about you?
Well, I saw your paper this morning, and I bought it, and what it says about me, I hope it sends a message. Mine is a grassroots campaign. I have donations from ordinary people. There's not a single. I've funded a lot of it myself, and I've had donations from just individuals who believed in me. You know, there's nothing from a business on there, I believe. I think it's all individuals. I've tried to remember. I believe it's all individuals, and fairly smaller contributions. I think my part is the biggest. I know I think I'm at $8,540 myself, not counting, some incidentals, and the rest of it has been just individuals that have given donations to me. So I'm trying to run a grassroots campaign. I didn't want to take donations, but to run a campaign across this county like this, you have to. I tried before, and it's almost impossible to do it on just a single paying for it yourself, unless you have a lot of money. So there you go.
Barnette.
Thank you. I guess what would my donations and expenditures say about me? I would say, first of all, I'm not a politician, so it's probably the world's worst to go out and ask people for money. I think the donations that I have and so far have been, there's a few businesses in there, but I think more than not, it's individuals or leaders of those businesses that have seen the great changes that we've had in our school system, that it will impact our economy and impact our way of life here in Cullman County. So I think a lot of people, I know a lot. I just got a card yesterday in the mail with a check from some people here in Cullman County, and they just said, hey, we want to keep great things happening in our school system because it rolls over into our businesses and our industries and the success of Cullman County as a whole. So they're individually investing in my campaign and really just as an encouragement to, hey, keep on going, keep doing the right thing, and let's try to move this county forward.
Okay. Question number 3, and we'll start with Superintendent. And if we had to pinpoint one thing, and there's, of course, so many things to choose from, but if you had to pinpoint one thing, what is the most urgent need facing our system right now, and how will you address it?
Okay. There's plenty of needs for sure. I don't know if one's more urgent than the next, but I will say this. Our mental health crisis in our society and in our school systems, they affect so many things. From, like we mentioned, school safety earlier. It affects school safety, but it also affects the academic achievement of our students and the well-being of our students and so many things. So I would probably say it's the mental health crisis. And how are we going to address that? And I already have done that some. We applied for a grant, and we got a grant that's a mental health coordinator. We're on the second year of that, and we're going to apply for that grant again. But some of the things that we also done, we've used grants and we've used federal funds to hire social workers. And those social workers are a bridge between our students and their families to other organizations in Cullman County. As you all are well aware of, we have many organizations in Cullman County that are eager to help people, mental health, people struggling with mental health issues and other things, but our social workers are that bridge. And they also, our teachers are not trained to deal with mental health. So our social workers come along and they try to help with that as well. We have a couple of outreach opportunities planned relative to mental health coming up. And we constantly have guest speakers that come in and talk to our kids about bullying, which I think is still part of mental health, as well as suicide attempts and things like that. That's a real struggle. So it's a moving target, and we're going to keep working at it. But I think a key to it is our social workers, our counselors, and branching those other governments entities and bringing them in to partner with us and help out in that area.
Mr. Williams.
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm just saying ditto. I agree so much with what he is saying. That mental health, I think, is going to be or is a huge problem for our county, for our students. There are students, as I stand in the hall and I just watch, and I see kids that I can tell I don't know the professional diagnosis because that's beyond my scope, but you can tell that something's not right, and those kids need some help. And we have kids, it goes beyond bullying and things that teachers are not trained to do, to intercede in, things that our counselors at the schools are not able to intercede with effectively. I do think one thing that we could do really is the bullying. On an everyday level, I think that would help somewhat with minor cases, helping these kids. Our students need to feel like the school is the safest place for them, maybe even safer than their homes, because some of these kids are coming from places where it's not particularly safe, and it's very sad to say that. But we need to do whatever we can to help these kids feel a part of our schools and that they are necessary, that they are important parts of our school cultures. And I think if we can do that coupled with the mental health ideas, yes, I'm all for that. I think with the counselors, you need to be very careful with that. But I think that is exactly what we need to be doing. So, yes.
All right, Mr. Williams, you get this one first.
Yes, sir.
What is right with the school system right now that you'd like to see preserved or strengthened?
I would like to see sort of a return. We do have school spirit. It's not as strong as it used to be. That sense of belonging I was just talking about, I don't want it to be divisive, where I remember the rivalry between Holly Pond and Fairview years ago, and at times it would get, dumb, okay? Kids do things. But I think that sense of belonging that you can have with a school, we've lost it at several schools. And I think we need to do things. We're on the right track at Holly Pond, I believe, doing things to bolster that sense of belonging and that pride in the school. If we do that, I think it will help students feel a part of the school and feel that they belong and that they have a stake in it. And I think that will make a difference. I think that's something good that we need to keep doing.
Dr. Barnette.
Well, there's many things that are great in our school system right now, and there's many things that we'd like to keep doing. I love the belonging thing. We started a campaign a little while back about connecting, getting every child connected to each other in the school. I think that helps academic things and it helps behavior in so many different areas. But I will say, I think what's going right now in our school system is we're not going to be satisfied with mediocre. We're in a position right now in Cullman County that our kids are striving to be the absolute best that they can be, and our teachers are helping them achieve those things. So we're achieving more than we've ever achieved. Our graduation rate's higher than it's ever been. Our college and career readiness rate is higher than it's ever been. And we're creating more opportunities for kids and more pathways for kids to be successful. We're helping kids. If they want to go to college, we're going to help them figure out a way to go to college. If they want to go to the workforce, we're going to help prepare them to go to the workforce. And to me, that's exciting because that gives them hope, and they see that, hey, I want to do this, and we're going to help them reach their dreams. And that's exciting to me. That's what's going right, and we're going to keep doing that.
All right. Dr. Barnette, you get the first shot at this next one.
Okay.
What improvements should be made to the system's curriculum?
Yeah, and there's always rooms for improvements to curriculum. So many things in relative to our curriculum is mandated from the State Department. Our, the pathway that we have to follow comes from the state. I'll tell you, we get to vote on and we get to select our own textbooks and things like that. But one of the things that we do, we don't get enough money from the State Department to buy quality textbooks. So we have to use local funds to help pay for that. So we need to continue to do that. We need to provide our teachers and our students with quality textbooks. But the answer is not the textbook. The answer is putting the absolute best prepared teacher in front of those students every single day. And when we do that, the kids are going to learn what they need to learn. The curriculum can be tweaked. There's no doubt. We're always we got to select what type of textbook we got this year, and the last few years always. But the last few years, for instance, our reading series, there was only 2 choices, and one of them that met all the criteria for the State Department, the requirements that they had. But in my mind, I knew that I have a very conservative board, and I'm a very conservative person. And when I looked through that textbook, there were things that I just could not agree with. And I vetoed it. I said, no, we're not going to be buying that book for Cullman County Schools. And we got to continue to do that. We got to continue to be involved in those things in the selection of the curriculum. But as far as the standards, the State Department sets those standards. But what we use to teach those standards, we get to choose that locally. And we're going to continue to be conservative about that and teach all the standards and help our kids learn all they need to learn.
Mr. Williams.
Well, I believe I have to echo what he's saying there as far as the best teachers in the classroom. The changes to the curriculum, let me say, one thing that I would like to do, and I will push as hard as I can, if elected, when elected, however you want to say it, is our trade school, our vocational school. We need to be working towards, I would like to see, I want to look at explore the feasibility of moving towards an all-day concept like we used to have. I believe the grant ran out and then it sort of faded out. And I think that would be a huge bonus to help our students to find their pathway, find their way into the workforce, because a lot of our kids, from the numbers that I've looked at, 50, 60%, are not planning on going to college. They're going to go to work. They need a trade. They need a skill, and they can make so much money with those skills. It makes me wonder why, the teaching, it's they can make more money their first year than some teachers are going to make in their 10th year of teaching. So I think we need to expand that and give those opportunities. While the state, I went to a workforce development meeting down there the day before. I couldn't take off school long enough to go to it. Didn't have enough warning to have a sub, but they have this new program called Skills for Success. And I think we need to be helping our students to find that, where they can go down there and they can get a credential in like driving a skid steer, driving a bulldozer, running an excavator, doing things like that. And with that credential, that will help the kids, help the students that they're not going to college. They just choose not to, that maybe college is not cut out for everybody. So they can go down there and in a short period of time get a credential that will help them get a job, and then they will build their skills once they get on that job, if they don't choose to go to school. But we need to open up opportunities like that, build partnerships with industry like we've never had before, where these kids, these students, have every opportunity. Cullman is changing. It is not the Cullman of my youth when there were very few opportunities. And I want to do everything possible to help these students get to those things, stuff that I don't know about even, because I've went to college, I'm academic oriented, but there's a world out there. With working with my chicken houses and stuff, I'm exposed to some of that, and there's so many opportunities that we need to really expand on for these students and get them to understand there is absolutely nothing wrong. It's great. There's a shortage of these workers out there, and the opportunities are almost boundless for those students.
Okay, Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
And we have had suggestions for questions from students, teachers, parents, and this is one that a student or a teacher might ask, and probably from very different points of view. And so we'll let y'all address this as you like. Where do you stand on student cell phones and electronics, especially personal electronics, in schools and in classrooms?
I think that cell phones are a major distraction. They're so ubiquitous in our culture. They're everywhere. But like I tell the students when I'm teaching, I say, put your phones away, keep them away. I cannot compete with TikTok. I can't compete with YouTube. And they're constantly there. There is a real addiction to those devices. I don't know. I mean, we have had policies of no cell phones, and that is a policy, but it's so hard to enforce. It is so hard to enforce. And they manage to hide them. You think they don't have them out, and then you turn around and there they are. Well, you can take the phone up, but that is a major distraction. And I don't know if we can put the genie totally back in the bottle, because you run into those student privacy issues and things like that. And some of those are well-founded. I remember when I used to take up cell phones and put them in the office and stuff, and, sometimes student aides would go through them, and I don't like that. So it's a major distraction, and I don't think they should have them in class. And we can enforce the policies, but it's very, very difficult.
Barnette.
How do I feel with students having cell phones in the schools and the classrooms? I feel like students don't need to have their phones during instructional times, most definitely. I know a lot of parents are concerned with, they want their students to have the phone if there's an incident or a crisis at school or something like that. But I will tell you now, if there is an incident or crisis, more likely than not, that grid is going to be bogged down with everybody trying to contact everybody. But the biggest thing is they just don't need to have them out during instructional time. When we try to cut back on cell phones, we increase instructional time, and it all goes back to that time that the teacher has with the student. More often than not, when it comes to cell phones, we have students that are getting in trouble with cell phones, not for just having them. It's for sharing inappropriate pictures or whatever they might be saying. But during the instructional time, there's really no place for a cell phone during that time. But as well, I think there needs to be some lessons about etiquette and how to use them, when it is convenient and when it is appropriate to use a cell phone and so forth. Because we see now, you go out in a public restaurant or something, or somebody just almost ran into me yesterday. They had their face in their phone as they're walking through Walmart. We're going to have to teach some of those lessons to help people be more appropriate with the cell phones. But during instructional times, there's really not a place for it. I know kids use them now to access Google Docs and things like that, and they're going to say that, but I think they can practice that at home.
Okay, as we get into the second half of our questions, y'all have already answered enough questions that you have probably at least partially answered some of these questions that are coming up, but we're still going to put them out there and give you another opportunity to give us some detail. And so question number 7, Mr. Barnette first, how would you deal with the problem of bullying?
Well, I'll tell you, if I had an easy answer for that, I'd wiggle my nose and just stop it. I think more than anything, it's got to be a partnership with parents, with our teachers, with our counselors, our administration. It's going to take all of us. That's been an ongoing struggle for a very long time. And it comes down to how we raise our kids to treat one another. More often than not, when we deal with somebody that's been bullying other kids, it comes back to they were raised differently than other people were. And there's got to be some lessons in there. We have a discipline ladder if there is a young person that's bullying, they progressively move up that discipline ladder for different consequences. We'll continue to do that. But one of the things that we've got to do, it's got to be a grassroots effort where we bring in speakers. Our counselors are now doing lessons on bullying. We have advisory that are supposed to be teaching that in the classroom about how to get along with one another. And we got to continue to do that, but we got to do a lot more. One of the things that we need to do is if we have students that are routinely bullied, we've got to get those names and find out who those kids are doing that and address them directly. Sometimes people will call my office and they'll say their child's being bullied, but they can't give me a name and they can't tell me who and they can't tell me exact instances. And if we get that information, then we can do our best to put a stop to it and train that young person not to do that, not to treat others that way. And that's what it's important. We got to change those behaviors, not just punish them for the behavior.
Mr. Williams.
Well, bullying, I think, is a huge problem. The biggest thing you can do, of course, you want to punish, you want to intervene, and you want to educate the bully and try to get them to change. Treat others as you want to be treated. Some people haven't learned that lesson. And at school, we are charged with teaching that, and we need to model that. And I've heard of instances where, in some cases, that bullying, they know who's doing it, and they just don't choose to intervene because that person has connections to the school or to someone, and they just overlook it and sweep it under the rug. And I think when you sweep stuff under the rug, you run a real risk of tripping over it later. And there's so many kids that are hurting, and there's so much that you want to do from their home life. And part of the bullying is from home, what they're going through there, and they don't know how to deal with it. And maybe it is what they have learned, how to deal with controversy or something, or simply just picking on somebody that they can pick on because they don't want anybody bothering them. Most of your bullies are insecure about something, and then they act out on it. And if we have to intervene. That discipline ladder that Mr. Barnett's talking about, we've got to actually implement that and not overlook bullying. I've heard several people talking about cases where they allege that it's just been overlooked. So I think that's what it is. As teachers, we've got a important job to not look the other way when things are happening, and administrators have the same responsibility. So I think it is a huge problem, and I think if we could adequately address that, we would deal with some, not all, but some of the mental health issues that students are going through in our schools.
Okay. And here's an elephant in the room question. One of the things that has contributed to this election and this campaign is the controversy over the so-called Project X. If such a proposal, would your administration run from such a proposal? Would you look at it in a different way? How would you approach that?
In my view, I have no problem with the concept of a Project X except for the school system being involved in it. When Project X was talked about several years ago, and I forget which year it was, I did a little bit of research on my own, and it's just me Googling, so there's nothing scientific about it, but it was a $30 million project. So using simple math, the amortization on the loan is going to be like $1 million a year that we'd have to pay. I forget what the interest rate was. I'm sure it was a low interest rate. So you're talking $1 million a year. Then you also have to maintain the facility. And I think I heard, I may misremember, but the projection was that we would eventually be making $3 to $5 million a year out of it. My problem is not if the city wanted to build it, if the county wanted to build it, if a private investor wanted to build it, that's their deal. That's their project. Let them vote on it. Let them go through the process. The thing I didn't like was that it wasn't discussed effectively with the voting people, with the taxpayers. We sometimes forget who we work for in this system. We're working for the taxpayers. I don't know. I would have to look at it. I just don't think it's the role of the schools. That's my gut reaction. I don't think it's something that the school system should be involved in because most of us are in academics. We're not in the business of development. And I don't think it's a wise choice for us to do that. Now, you could do partnership, but I don't think the schools need to be partnered in something like that. Let the county do it. Our business, we've got enough just handling the bullying, handling the curriculum, handling the student issues that come up every day. And I just don't feel that that is something that the school system should be involved in. I think it's better left to private developers or some other entity like that that does that day in and day out. And that's what I think about it.
Dr. Barnette.
Thank you. The really cool thing about Project X, when we first had that idea, I had some developers approach me about it. And the really neat thing about it was the developers were helping us develop it and put together a business plan for that they would pretty much help us lay it all out, but yet our school system would generate that $3 to $5 million and it would come back to our school system that we could use that money at our local schools. We all know that we can't build what Cullman High School has, all the artificial turfs and all the nice facilities. We can't build that on 7 different campuses. I don't foresee that ever happening because that would be multi-million dollars, huge budget. But the goal for that way back then was that we could build one that we could share periodically. And when we were not using it, then they would rent the facility out to other things in the business plan that would generate several $1 million. And that money would be applied back to our local schools. And the developers help us meet with government officials as far as trying to put together a business plan for that. During that time, we couldn't really go to the public about it because somebody was donating the property that was worth millions of dollars. They were donating that to the school system, and it had to be quietly done. And we were also working on competitive grants and so forth that we were going to acquire millions of dollars to apply toward the project that other people were applying to also. And that's one reason we couldn't go public. But if nothing else, this was a perfect example how when the community, they didn't have all the information, they had what we could share with them, but when they started expressing that, hey, they didn't want us to go that route, I put it on the shelf. And I said, no, okay, well, let's not do it. It's not time for that. We listened to the community, we put it on the shelf. It was a little too progressive, a little too far out there, and we didn't do it. Have I ever tried to bring it back up? No, I haven't. Do I have a plan to do it again? No, I don't. We've worked hard to make the improvements because during that time, everybody said we would rather use those funds right now to make improvements on our local campuses, and that's what we've been doing. One of the things that come up during that is, while we still had that, they would like for us to get rid of the Section 16 land and the property that my predecessor bought on Smith Lake property. So we worked hard to sell that and secure that money and stuff. So no, I wouldn't look at doing that project again. But the project itself at the very beginning, it was good, and it would have put a lot of money into our school system. And the good thing about it is, we did shelf it, and the city's doing it now, and it's going to generate millions of dollars. And that's great for them because that money will go back into their budget and not our school system. And we would love to have had that money in our school system, but we don't have it, and that's okay. We're going to work on other means.
Okay, Dr. Barnette. Some schools and systems are doing away with honors like valedictorians in order to be as fair as possible to all students. Do competitive honors still have a place in our schools?
Yeah, competitive honors do. I will tell you, one of the arguments for valedictorian and salutatorian, and we're not doing away with those, but one of the arguments of that is we have so many different pathways now to get a high school diploma. You can be a full virtual student and do your work from home and still be valedictorian at your local high school, or you can go to Wallace your last 2 years and be a full dual enrollment student and be valedictorian, or you can be on your local campus. There's so many different pathways, but one of the things I'm really excited about, not just valedictorian and salutatorian, about the honors program, we have many honors programs as well, that their grades or their classes are weighted. It's the dual enrollment classes, but at the same time, we have honors at the local school, and we have some advanced classes that are weighted differently as well, which leads into, I'm really excited that we have so many students that take advantage of our dual enrollment classes, either through Fast Track at their local schools. And starting this fall, all of our students that take dual enrollment classes through Wallace State will have free tuition. And that's a partnership that we have with Wallace that starts in August, and we're really excited about that. But yes, those classes, we need to challenge those kids. If young people, they need to take the most advanced class that they can take. That means there may be students that take advanced math, but they don't take advanced English, whatever that may be. And we have a pathway through an online computer system or through Wallace State Community College that we can challenge those kids, and they can take as much advanced classes as they possibly can take.
Mr. Williams.
Well, I have been a senior sponsor for, I don't really remember how many years. It's been several years. And I remember when there was a time, and I forget the time frame, it was a few years ago, that there was actually discussion about doing away with valedictorian and salutatorian, and the reasoning was that there were not enough students getting those, it was like 1 and 2, so valedictorian, salutatorian, and what they wanted was, to go like you do in college where you're magna cum laude, summa cum laude, and go to a system like that, because it would spread it out and it would make everything, more kids would participate, more kids would get honors and stuff. And I think that valedictorian and salutatorian is important because it's something, it's a tradition that kids have worked for. Now, I think we can go with, if you wanted to, you can have your summa cum laude and you can have your honors program in addition to. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think, there's some kids that they really, I don't want them to be overly competitive, unhealthily competitive. But they want that. It's a goal for them to strive for, to be valedictorian. My daughter, for example, she talked about it at one time that she wanted to be valedictorian in her class. And I don't know if she will be, who knows how that'll work out. But it was something that might spur some interest. We do have a great program. At one time with the dual enrollment and Fast Track, at one time at Holly Pond, I teach dual enrollment history. We have dual enrollment English. We had dual enrollment computers for a little while. We had calculus, dual enrollment math, and we have dual enrollment biology. I joked with people saying we're like an annex of Wallace State right here at Holly Pond. So I think those are important, and the weight that is ascribed to those with our curriculum is a wonderful thing, because you reward those kids for taking those harder classes. And I've never been about grades. I'm more about the learning. I tell the kids, with weight, it kind of takes some of that off. I think it's better if a kid makes an 87 in a class that they're learning something in, than if they're making a 92 in a class where they can just coast, or they make a 95 and they're just coasting. One thing that I would like is on our GPA that is calculated. Right now, we allow PE to count on GPA, and I think it should be 4 core. That's one change I would make. That maybe go beyond your question or whatever. I'm sorry if I do. But that's one thing that I think we need to readdress in the future is PE, yeah, they get a grade, but I don't think it should be counted in the GPA for valedictorian, salutatorian, and so on like that. So, yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
Online education just came up in this last question, but this question is about online education. It is becoming more popular, especially since COVID. How should the system respond to the trend of online education?
Well, you have to make sure that the online curriculum is a good curriculum. In the election, in the forum at the Republican Party the other day, I made the comment, that some homeschool, I know this is not a homeschool question, but, like sitting and watching PBS Kids is not a viable option for homeschool. For virtual school, that's what they would say. It has to be a viable, a rigorous, or a good curriculum for the students where they're actually learning something. In some of our cases, now there's obstacles. Some of our students are doing these access classes, and access Spanish would be extremely hard for these students. So what we need to do to respond to it, I think we need to find a way to make it where the kids can do it, make it doable. If that's what we're going to do, if we're going to offer virtual classes, we need to make it where it's doable. We do have to make sure that they're actually learning, that it is a good curriculum, and that the kids will profit from it. There are some students who have maybe compromised immune systems, and I'm thinking of a student who maybe is taking chemotherapy and coming to school could put their health at jeopardy. So we need to be able to address that. I think it's going to be an issue in the future. Let me say that the most important, the best place for a kid is in the classroom with a highly qualified teacher. And I think that's the best solution, but we're going to have to deal with it, and we just need to ensure that it's a good quality education. Does that answer your question?
All right. Barnette.
Thank you. It is a trend, virtual, and the whole world, our workforce is online now, even more now since COVID. And back before we even had COVID, we started an online school. And I will tell you, we had several students that were taking full classes online, virtual school, and some were being successful and some were not. When we moved in, due to COVID, we moved into like everybody moving into a virtual school, and we quickly learned that is not the best way to learn. So one of the things during COVID that we quickly returned as much as possible to face-to-face instruction, and I'm really excited to sit here and tell you today that we actually, even during COVID, when we were having to do 2 days and rotate kids and stuff, we had more face-to-face instruction than most school districts in Alabama. They began looking at our schedule as a model and wondering how we did that. And that's one reason, because we did that, we didn't have such a drop-off at pre-COVID as during COVID for our learning. And the only reason I mention that is because, yes, face-to-face instruction with a quality instructor in front of that student is the best way to learn. Are there exceptions? Absolutely. We have a lot of students, and right now we offer a virtual option for middle school and high school, but you have to have a letter from a doctor to get into that, and because we know that's not how kids learn best. We have many options, many pathways for kids to learn. They can actually, through dual enrollment, they can take an online class through Wallace State. Many of our students are taking that after hours and during the summer, taking online courses through them. But we do have a curriculum that we offer an online virtual school with, and it's been vetted and approved by the state, and it's quality instruction. And but we also offer access classes, as Mr. Williams said, and those access classes are actually teachers at other campuses that are teaching these classes, and our students, it may be we don't have a teacher that teaches that subject at that school, so they can take an access class to learn that curriculum. And we also, like I said, we have a virtual school that some students are enrolled in, that we have we have teachers that are working with our fast track program. They also work with our virtual students, so they're always tracking the progress that those kids are making to make sure they stay on track and meeting those goals that they need to meet.
Okay, next question comes to you, Mr. Barnette. Mental health came up earlier. Another question, and this one is just about what mental health services do we need in schools, or do we need them in the schools? Do we train our faculty and staff, or do we hire specifically dedicated mental health personnel?
Good question. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all when it comes to mental health, I will tell you. Like I talked about earlier, we've hired social workers that go across our district. I would love to have a social worker in every single school. We ultimately need that. We've hired several, but a lot of school systems, we got zero money for social workers from the State Department in our budget. Many school systems in Alabama have no social workers available. What you may not know is we don't get fully funded for our counselors that are in our schools. Very few of our schools qualify for a full-time counselor. So as you can see, we have to use local sales tax money to get a whole unit for a counselor at every one of our schools, and we have that. But what I would love to have a social worker and at least a full-time counselor and maybe an assistant at every one of our campuses to help those students with mental health challenges.
Mr. Williams.
Well, the question, I believe, was, I'm reading it, who he's trying to, okay, the faculty, I think we could do, we're not going to be qualified. Teachers are not and we don't need to put teachers in a position where they are counseling students. I think that could be a recipe for disaster, because you may say something well-meaning and it may be not what that kid needs to hear at that moment. We're just not trained for that. We've got all we can do teaching our classes. I second the idea of the mental health personnel in the schools that are trained and qualified. It's a growing problem nationwide. It's not just here. It's everywhere. And we're going to have to find the money somewhere to help with this situation. So to train the faculty, I think you'd have to hire specific folks who are trained. It would be a whole lot of training for the teachers to go through, and you've got to be sure that the people who are doing this counseling are doing it correctly. And I guess you just have to be sure you vet what they're doing with those students. There's a lot of mental health stuff out there that can actually be dangerous to students at times, and I won't really get into all that, but there's a lot of things to look at. But we do need to have trained people helping our students to cope with these problems that they're having.
All right, and our last question. What is the proper balance between college prep and vocational prep in the curriculum of today's high school or today's school system?
I think, in my opinion, if I understand the correction right, the question right, that you need to have the balance is geared toward the student. In the perfect world, every student would have an individualized educational plan. And you could work out what they need and where they need to go based on that. I don't know that we need to go into what they call tracking, but we need to gauge these students and help them to go down their area of interest. On vocational prep, there's a lot of stuff. I've talked to some people in industry, and I asked them, what do we need to be teaching kids? What do we need to be teaching our students that will help you when they get to the job that they can do? And I've heard stuff like, you need to teach them soft skills. You need to teach them, show up on time, talk to people, look them in the eye when they're talking to you, how to shake hands even, and things like that. Financial management. I mean, next year we're going to have the state's mandating a financial class. I was talking to a lady at a bank, and I asked her that question, what we need to do. And she said, teach them to manage their money, because if they have a 400 credit rating and they want to go to work as a teller, I can't really hire them and put them in that position because they can't manage their money. I can't trust them to manage someone else's. So the balance between the college prep, I think you're going to have students that are going to go a pathway. They're going to be headed toward the college prep level, like with your dual enrollment classes. You just have to cater it to those students, find their interest, and help them. I don't want to create a situation where it's the road not taken. You go down the road so far and you can't go back. I want it to be as much as we can where they can vary if they want to, but help them find their pathway, help them find their way to where they want to be. And I think that's what we need. Every kid needs some vocational prep. We got to get some work ethic into a lot of these kids. They're just not getting it at home. That's what I've heard from several people, just knowing how to work and not being ashamed to work. So there you are.
Dr. Barnette.
When we talk about a balance between college prep and vocational prep, I think of what balance do we need? They need to know both. I don't know how many people is watching this, and I know people that are in this room right now, but how many of you knew when you were in the 6th grade, when you thought, hey, this is what I want to do? How many of you are doing that now as an adult? Probably not very many of us. So I will say we need to introduce them to both. One of the things that we're currently doing right now is that every single student in our school system, before they graduate, they will have at least one college course completed. And why do we do that? Is because I read an article a while back that said everybody that takes or completes one college course, they're 80% more likely to take that second college course. So I went to Dr. Karlowicz and we put together a program. I had to go to the chancellor of Alabama actually to get the pilot program approved because we're doing it at no cost to the students. So we put this program together, and we've got kids that are taking college courses, and I've had several of those kids come back to me and they say, Dr. Barnette, I had no idea that I could actually go to college, that I could complete a college course, and they're going to go on and take more courses. Well, that's only part of it. The other thing that I want to do, I want every graduate from Cullman County School to have a credential in their toolbox that if they decide that college is not for them, or maybe they go to college and they decide whatever they got a degree in, that's not what they want to do the rest of their life, they can fall back on this skill that they learn and go right into the workforce. There is absolutely nothing wrong with going out of high school and going to work. You've heard me say many times, I don't care what you do, just get a W-2. I want our young people to be able to provide for their families and make a good living that they don't have to depend on the government. One of the things that we're doing right now with our vocational prep, we Build It Better in 8th grade. And they're learning how to do many skills, but just this year, we were the first school system in the United States to begin We Build It Better in grades 1 through 5, and we're really excited about that. The other thing that we added just this year is a program called U Science, and it's a partnership with Economic Development. They helped us fund this program where it doesn't just take the interest of the kids take an aptitude test where it says, okay, what are you good at? What are you interested at? And then it shows you a pathway to be able to do that, to reach your dream. It goes a little bit further and it says, here are some industries and businesses in Cullman County that you can do this at, and here's what it pays, and here's the degree, or here's the credential that you got to have. So we're trying to prepare those young people either go to college and be successful or go into the workforce and be successful. So the balance is we want both, and that's what I'm excited about.
Thank you, gentlemen. Those are the last of our questions. So as we finish out, Dr. Barnette, you've got the microphone. One more chance, one more thing folks need to know.
Well, they need to know that we've got a school system that is thriving, that's doing great things. We're graduating more kids than we've ever graduated. They're ready for the workforce or college like they've never been ready before. And being a lifelong Cullmanite, I've lived here all my entire 50 years, and I am more proud about our school system. And it's not just Shane Barnette. I've hired well. I've got other people. I've got teachers and administrators that are doing a fantastic job. But we're taking on the challenge of finding that kid's niche and helping them be successful and going on and providing for their families. And I am super excited about that. And if you elect me on March the 5th, I'm going to continue to do that. And we're going to work hard. And I'm already working on new opportunities and more pathways for kids because there's a few more kids out there that we're not reaching, and we want to reach them. And we want to do whatever it takes to help our young people be successful. Thank you.
Mr. Williams, finish this out.
Well, I will ask humbly for people to vote for me on March the 5th. What I want to bring to this school system is the same thing that I've talked about before: accountability and transparency. I want to show that. I think I've shown that in my life, in my teaching, in everything that I have done. I've tried to be accountable. And I think in our school system there are things that we can do better. We need to remember that the taxpayers are the ones that are calling the shots in this system. They're the ones that we have to answer to, the voters and the taxpayers. And what we have a great school system. We have a system that can be so much better. We just need to work diligently to improve it. We need to have that accountability and the transparency so that you know what's going on at all times in your school system and you have a voice in it. I will point out to certain things like board meetings. Could be at a time when people can come. What I think I bring to the table in this is I haven't been a administrator, but I've been in the classroom, and I think it is the classroom teachers that make the difference. I think me and Mr. Barnette, or Mr. Barnette and I, would agree on that it is the classroom teachers that make the difference. The reason that these kids are achieving and they have gone over and above, and we didn't have the losses, as Mr. Barnette said, it is because of the classroom teachers. And I will never forget that. That's what makes this whole thing work. You can have administrators set a culture, but the teachers also set a culture. You close the door and you teach what you're supposed to teach, and your interest is what is best for those kids. And that is what we need to focus on. My job, if you give it to me, is to ensure that the principals have all the tools that they can have. And there's nobody in this county, in this state, that will work harder than I will work to bring initiatives in to help foster that environment. The principal's job is to help the teachers. My job is to help the principals. And it all goes back to those kids. And if you ever lose focus of that, then I don't know what the point of the school system is. That's going to be my focus. It has been my focus for 27 years, and I hope that you'll let me do that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Go ahead.
As far as our board meetings, their board meetings are currently at 3:30 p.m. We used to do them at 5:30 or 5, and we had several board members and several people that we were trying to highlight at our board meetings, and they couldn't get there because they were doing other events later that night. So we moved them up to 3:30 so that people could come right after school before their games and things like that started. I am proud to say that we have had more people attend at 3:30 than we did at 5 or 5:30. So we were just trying to find a balance for that. But one of the things that we do to try to stay transparent is that we live stream all of our board meetings, and we have them on our website. You can go back and watch any of them. I don't think there's a soul out there that's ever called and wanted to schedule an appointment with me that I've turned them away and wouldn't meet with them. I'll always meet with you. And if we overwhelmingly, if people say, I want to be there, but I can't be there till 5, we'll change the board meetings back to 5. It doesn't matter to me. We just want to be a part of all of our students' lives, and we were able to go to ball games and things like that after the 3:30 board meetings. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. And you who are watching, thank you for joining us for the Cullman Tribune 2024 candidate debates.